Shambhu, Mahadev, Mahadev, Namah Shivaya. The purity of mind. We described this last class. We continue with the subject. The ahankara in a person happens because of his likes and dislikes. Sorry. Ishta and ishta. The cause of ahankara comes from there. I like it, I don't like it. Because we have explained about this subject earlier also in Upanishads. Likes and dislikes are those attractions by the ego, by the mind and indriyas. Here, when I said ego, by the ahankara, that means it is through the indriyas and through the mana. Without any control of the mind organized, the attraction and attachments is guided to the objects based on only for selfish motive. That means an egoistic action. That means selfish motive. That's why I said it's egoistic. And on the other hand, the ego comes because of the ishta and ishta. It's all complementary to each other. The creation of ahankara comes because of that. Ishta and ishta. Likes and dislikes are basically, as we again repeating classifications, are purely based on our temporary requirements, temporary emotional status. Very, very temporary emotion. 1 minute before I liked something, just after a minute I don't like it. Not even a minute, less than that, maybe few seconds. It doesn't have any basis of likes and dislikes. There's no tattva behind it, how one should like it. Likes and dislikes are there, that's a different thing. They are in Vedanta. But the purity, the subject here, what we are discussing is that what is obstructing the purity of mind is likes and dislikes and ahankara, and that which is converting into ahankara. Likes and dislikes again as basic feature of an emotion. Why I said it's a basic feature of emotion? Because the like and dislike, the emotion says, or the mind says, that if I have it, I will be like this, or I can become like this. It's purely an imaginary calculation without any basis. Most of the time without any basis. With basis liking will not be called as liking. A person who would like to do tapasya, it's not an emotional decision, such serious things. And when he does that, it is not an emotional satisfaction of the mind or emotional attachment of the mind, or it is not an expectation by the mind that something I will achieve out of it. One who thinks out of meditation or out of tapasya, I must achieve something, that is not meditation. That's again likes and dislikes. Sakama karma, sakama bhakti, sakama karma, sakama shraddha, like that we have told. So many words are there in Sanskrit. Sakama bhakti or sakama dhyanam, sakama dhyana. Okay, we can say meditation. That we do not call it as liking, because it is an inherent nature of the inner self, not created by the indriyas and mana. It is because of the antaratma's jnanam which is reflected on the mana, and the mind has flown into the path of the antaratma or the antakarana of the antaratma, and then a decision of tapasya has been taken. If one does tapasya only for a particular purpose or particular siddhi, that is like, that can be called as likes and dislikes. Because the tapasya is not done for the siddhi. Siddhi comes out of tapasya, that's a different thing. We have described about this earlier also. So the likes and dislikes here, mostly because of the materialistic world, the likes and dislikes. In spirituality, once a purified mind, once it is purified, a purified mind would not have likes and dislikes. That is, everything is that whatever is there, it is there, that's all. I don't have to like it or I don't have to dislike it. It's a very strange emotion. It's very difficult to understand also, and difficult to explain also. Ultimate, a person who has achieved, I am talking about the ultimate, a person who has achieved absolute Brahmajnanam and Brahma Tattvam, for him there is no liking, or there are no likes and dislikes, both are not there. He is totally in the Brahman. That means everything that is happening is all meant for something. But what happens, there are so many things in the universe, we need not to like and dislike anything and everything. His attitude will be, there is no question of likes and dislikes what are there existing in the universe. Whatever is meant for me, I take it and use it. I have it and use it. Whatever is not meant for me, I do not accept it, I do not attempt it, or I do not consume it, or I do not practice it. There he is not creating a classification, because I don't like it, I am not practicing it. No. Because it is not necessary, I am not wanting it. See, in this world there are so many things which we ourselves think, look at ourselves. Do we need everything that is there in the universe? We need only very few things out of it. So that if I accept it, then the question of like and dislike is not there. The likes and dislikes comes, that's the difference between these two. That what is necessary for execution of your karmas, you automatically take it and use it. Not because you like it, not because you dislike it. The likes and dislikes, where here it comes, which will create interference with the purity of the mind, is that when the likes and dislikes are based on the selfish motive, in order to have any self-interest on them, whereas Vyakti Bhava on that, that's Vyakti Bhava, and Swarthada in it. When there is a Swarthada in attaining something with desire, is called like. So again it is a desire only. What is liking? Like is also again a desire. From desire only that like comes. Desire is that to achieve something in order to have some benefit according to my imagination or by my experience maybe. Whatever it is. But I don't have to create a liking. Why they say this Dvandva Bhava should not be there. Why the likes and dislikes should not be there is what Vedanta says. Why? Because whenever there are likes and dislikes both, we get attached and attracted to it. When an attachment and attraction takes place, we are not in a position to, we are bound by that, and we will be dragged into that like those likes and dislikes instead of coming out of it and then go to the reality. We will go only by the imaginary likes and dislikes. All likes and dislikes are imaginary. By looking something we like, oh, I like it. How do you decide your liking? Let us go for that. How do you decide your liking? On what basis? What intelligence you have got when you say that I like it? Because you saw and the color is good, so you like it. Has it any bearing then? Is there any basis of that? It's an emotional change. That color at that point of time, because of the depreciation in the chakras of the particular chakra, there is a depreciation in the color, so that color is liked by me. So I like the color. And after 5 minutes, that I don't like it. Is why there is no basis on that. There is no bearing on that. Likes and dislikes should have a bearing on that. There should be a firm substratum for that. Then it's okay. But you will find all the likes and dislikes, both are due to just by, either by, it's all imagination only, by looking at it, an immediate likes, and the Indriya will procure it and the mind says, oh, I like it, or I don't like it. This liking and the one is that because it is created by the Indriyas and which doesn't have any basis. Second is that by this like and dislike, what benefit do we derive out of it? Only a temporary satisfaction, dislike and like. That satisfaction which will vanish within a few seconds, that's all. It doesn't have any permanency on that. It's anityam, it is temporary, this like and dislike, which is not having, since it doesn't have any basis, the likes and dislikes doesn't have any basis because it's all imaginary, it's all based on the immediate emotional satisfaction. It doesn't have any basis, plus it is all absolutely temporary, it will vanish. So those temporary things are not good for the purity, maintaining the purity of mind. You keep on filling with temporary things according to your imagination. The purpose of the mind, providing you a mind, for the purpose of purity, for you providing your mind in the system is meant for keeping it pure, not keeping it maligned. You can do both. If there is a vessel there or is a glass there, you can keep it clean or you can keep it dirty. That's okay. But what is it meant for? It's meant for keeping it clean. That's the meaning of that. So what is the mind meant for? Keeping it clean, that's all. Immense purity has to be there. There is no option, there is no question or argument on that. So when you fill up with all these things, what happens? The impurities takes place. The moment impurities takes place, the mind's reflection towards the purity and towards the self-realization is distracted by these impurities, veiled by these impurities. That's why this veil has to be removed. In Upanishad they say that the veil is maybe the golden Hiranya Samsthe, they said. It is no Hiranyam. It is like a golden cover. No? So you keep on liking it. That's the reason. But you should know, you should immediately take it out so that the immense purity is maintained. So this Swartha Bhava and Swarthata and anything achieving for the purpose of selfish motive is meant for liking, desire is known as liking, and this likes and dislikes will create the ahankara. The more and more likes and dislikes you create, the more and more ahankara will come. Ahankara is that Swartha Bhava will come. That Swarthata will come. Then Then we start working on that ahankara. Unless I possess that what I like, I am not satisfied. Then ahankara takes over. It's created by the likes and dislikes, but then ahankara takes over. That falsehood of the self is called ahankara. The falsehood of the I is called the ahankara. It's not the reality, the truth. That I will take over you. That I am so and so. You have a falsehood. That I am so and so. That falsehood only will lead us towards the false. The falsehood, I, ahankara, will lead to falsehood only, not the purity. But the pure I will lead you to the purity. Is why I told you the I, aham in the prakriti and the aham in the jivatma. I explained it in the last class, I think. So this ahankara is the one which obstructs, and this likes and dislikes, and the ahankara, these are the ones which distracts us from all the good things, or all the right things, or dharmic things to be happening to us. This is the basic reason. If I keep my likes and dislikes aside, my ahankara aside, I'll be only attached and attracted to those. Let me call it as attachment. Even though it's not an attachment, it is because of the self characteristics of being with that. It's not an attachment actually. Self characteristics being with that. When the ishta, anishta and the ahankara is not there, then the self-realization, the self-attachment or the self-being there with it will happen automatically. Then one recognizes and realizes the discrimination power comes to the mind. When the mind is aligned with all these things, the power of discrimination will not be there, because every time it is occupied by the likes and the satisfaction and dissatisfaction constantly. This ahankara is leading us. The moment I leave this ishta, anishta and ahankara, then what happens? The purity remains, and the purity remains. Only that is what is required for me in order to execute my karma and have the evolution towards the higher consciousness will be sighted by us, visible to us, or the jnanam towards that will come, and then we automatically use it and not possess it, use it, and then create our evolution. This is what happens. Now this ahankara and this ishta, when it is obstructing, then we lose the opportunities of acquiring the right things. You understood that? Because it's a hindrance for us to progress, you see. That is not at all necessary. And doesn't mean, now, somebody may ask, then, do you think that we should not have any likes and dislikes? As a jivatma, or we have certain ahankara in us, there will be likes and dislikes. The other side of it, the material side of it. There will be likes and dislikes of it. So what to do now? I would like to have this. See, there are so many people we are seeing who are not attached to those purities or those activities which create the purity of the mind. Even though they are in distress, they are in wrong path, they are in difficulties, they are in absolutely darkness, but still they are not wanting to gain themselves into the light. They are not wanting the light. They are not wanting to gain the light. They are not wanting to know how to gain the light also. They don't. No, they still keep on going antam tamaha. It keeps on leading them. The darkness is keeping on leading them. Why is it happening? It is because of the swartha bhava and selfish motive of achievement of satisfaction. They are looking for only temporary satisfaction, and with each and every satisfaction, he creates a dissatisfaction. Again, he creates a satisfaction. Then, to that satisfaction, he creates a dissatisfaction. See, if I like something, if I liked it, I should like it permanently. If I am not liking it after some time, that means I am creating a dislike to it. So like and dislike keep on turning its sides throughout where it is ending. It keeps on turning and tossing, that's all. It never comes to a conclusion and what is, where to stop it. It keeps on rotating like that. Vicious circle we call it. Should we not have likes and dislikes is the next question, a practical question. We call it as practical, even though it is not practical. Okay. The Jivatma or logical conclusions or logical minds, Charvakas, or people who would like to have arguments, they would like to ask whether likes and dislikes are not necessary. For them, an answer is there. Likes and dislikes can be there. It's not that it will be there, it can be there to that extent that it doesn't create any interruption to my progress of upliftment of the self. Till that time, till I do my, that should not create an interruption for my evolvement to the higher consciousness. To that extent I can have the likes and dislikes. Temporary dislike, like the nature of the like and dislike is temporary, I can have temporary likes and dislikes, and then I can understand myself, it is only temporary, it should not bother me, I can keep it separate. There are so many temporary things like that. So many temporary things we can keep, which doesn't, as I told you the last class, the involvement and then
witness.
Witness, involvement and witness. So long it remains as a witness, it is fine. But if you get involved in it, then it's a problem. So, likes and dislikes can be there. It's not that we should not, from tomorrow I should not have any liking or any disliking. No, let it have. Let the Jivatma, we have an ego, we have a Jivatma, we have a mind, we have an Indriya. We are not yet completely purified and then transformed to take sannyasa. We are not ready. So long that is not there, till the time you come to a conclusion, till the time you reach a status where you do not have any requirement of likes and dislikes, till such time you can have likes and dislikes to the extent that it doesn't interrupt the evolution of the self towards the higher consciousness. That's all. So to that extent it is okay. Everything to that limit it can be there. That's what. So that balancing has to be there. We cannot have the balancing because it's Maya, Ishta and Ishtam is Maya. And once you are into it, then your Ishta and Ishta or your control is lost. That will take you, the like and dislike will take you towards some other direction. This is where we need balancing of mind. For balancing of mind, we need Jnanam, Vidya. If I have that, if Vidya is there, what happens? I recognize it. Okay, this is that, this is that. Immediately one can recognize it. There is no problem on that. There were asuras like Mahabali and things like that. They were asuras, they were asurganas. Prahlada was an asura, no doubt about it, yes. But what happened? Because of his discrimination power, like having no likes and dislikes, his Sthita Prajna was firmly on the Lord itself. In Prahlada's case, on the God itself, what happened? He did not have that ahankara of being there. Naturally, he could evolve himself towards the higher consciousness, no doubt about it. This is what is, even though we have an asurigata in us, in every human being there is asurigata. This asurigata is there. In order to not promote the asurigata, the control of like and dislike is necessary, and the control of like and dislikes will come only through Vidya, through Jnanam. So Jnanam is absolutely necessary. That Jnanam, not any other Jnanam, that Jnanam which makes you capable of discriminating what is right and what is wrong, capable of discriminating what is dharmam and what is adharmam, capable of discriminating what is the right karma that you have to execute, what is the right kartavya you have to execute. These qualities have to be acquired then only one will be in a position to keep and maintain the purity of the mind. Is it okay? So this is what the likes and dislikes and the ahankara. The ahankara in any way should not interrupt or interrupt in our evolution of the self, evolution of the Atma, evolution of the Mana, evolution of the self to the higher consciousness or the Supreme or the Brahman. Up to that, everything is fine. So long it doesn't stop me from my progressing, it's okay. But if something which is stopping me from the progress, then I should be concerned about it. Is it not? So we have to find out. For that, simply just sitting and then thinking or not thinking, or not joining, it doesn't come. You have to have the jnanam. You have the capability to have the jnanam, but then you should have the determination to have the jnanam. Not through just going through the ajnanam and enjoying the pleasures and the limitations. You should come out of that pleasures and the limitations to unlimited. That's called to understand the jnanam. So one should have the jnanam, Brahma jnanam, which is Tattva jnanam, and this has to be there. Once it is there, we will be sitting and thinking, is it right or is it wrong? No, that discrimination has to be there. If it is wrong, I must be able to reject it. The strength to reject it. See, the another problem is that even though I know Ishta and Ishta is not good, but sometimes what happens, I am unable to control my desire to have it. I know it is not good, but then still my ego pushes you or drags you towards that. That even though you know it is not, that strength is not there. That strength to withdraw from there is not there. The strength to stop your emotion is not there. Emotions, stopping the emotion in the sense controlling the emotions. Emotions are necessary, as we have described earlier, but that is meant for, not for these things. These emotions are not meant for using it for all these desires and attachments and attraction. They are meant for something else. So these emotions, how to control them? That I am unable to control. Why am I unable to control? Because I don't have the strength to control. Where will I get the strength from? Dhiraha. There is a word called dhira in Sanskrit, dhira. Dhira is that who is a dhira? That who has got sthita prajna. First is that who is a dhira? Who has got this sthita prajna? The meaning of dhairyam or dhira is that the one who has controlled the dhihi is called dhairyam, dhira. Dhihi, aryate iti, dhairyam. Dhihi, buddhi, the one who has controlled the buddhi, or the one who has recognized the buddhi, or one who is capable of directing his buddhi, according to the jnanam, is the one who is dhira. They are known as dhira. In Upanishads and Vedas, you will find this word dhiraha. In so many times you will find this word. Dhira means the one. Dhihi, the one who balances the mind, who keeps the mind for the purpose of the power of discrimination, who has the capability of having the discrimination power and sticking to the right. Not only just discriminating, sticking to the right at what he has. After discrimination, what is the result? This is wrong, this is right. Sticking to that what is necessary, that is right, or to execute the karmas. What is right and wrong here? The right is that what is necessary for your execution of your karmas, your kartavyas, and ultimately to the evolution of the self. This is called right. Wrong is that opposite to this, that's all. And nothing other than that is, nothing else is right and wrong. Only this is right and wrong. That is it right for executing your karmas? Is it necessary for, is it the right thing to be used for executing your karmas, your kartavyas, and for the evolution of the self towards the higher consciousness, to the Brahman. If this is there, this is right for me. That's why we always say, right for me is not right for others. Right for others may not be right for you. There's always a discrimination. But what is the analysis of it, classification of it is this. Got it? Why it is like for you? Why it is right for you? Why it is not right for the others? It is because the right and wrong there is based on Ishta and Ishta. Got my point? The likes and dislikes are different from each and every one, so the
Ishta and Ishta.
Ishta and Ishta is also, Ishta and Ishta is different, so therefore everything is different for them. That's why dislikes, likes and dislikes are different for them, because it's all based on their own emotions, their own selfish motive, because your selfish motive and their selfish motive is different. So depending upon Swartha Bhava of each, the characteristics of the Ishta and Ishta changes. Is how the Ishta and Ishta has come, because of the Swartha Bhava. Suppose there are 100 sannyasis or the Maharishis sitting and doing tapasya, is their Ishta and Ishta different? Is their activity different? No. Their discrimination is different? No. All of them, after having the discrimination of the mind, Dhiraha, we said. Who are the Dhira? They are the Dhiraha. Who? The 100 of them sitting and meditating, but all the 100 of them, for all the 100 of them, they have these qualities of that through the Dhiraha. They have the Dhairyam. Their buddhi is tuned to seeing or accepting or analyzing or discriminating that what is right for their karma, their kartavya, if there is a karma kartavya for them, or for them, that what is necessary for evolving myself towards the Brahman is that the result of discrimination. That is right for them, and that right is right for everybody. There is no right for you and right for them, no. Whereas in this materialistic world, what happened? The right for you is not right for others. It is not the right is not right. It is because of your emotional statics of the Swartha Bhava, selfishness, the right and wrong changes. Ishta and Ishta changes based on that. The Ishta and Ishta, this is the analysis of that. That's why the right is not right and wrong. It's not that. Right is always right. I always say that the right is always right, the wrong is always wrong. But what is right has to be understood. Not the right, what is right for you. According to the power of after having the power of discrimination, immense purity of the mind, then your Sthita Prajna comes, then the Tapasya comes, then the power of discrimination comes in you. Through the power of discrimination, once the power of discrimination is there, each and every activity and each and every life, each and every purpose, each and every action that we do has the qualities of these three. Is it right for me? Is it right for the karma, kartavya, or for evolution? Is it right? That right only is right, and that is to be. He is known as Dhira. He, the one who has got that quality, he is known as Dhairya, and the one who is that is called Dhira. Dhairyam and Dhira noun, and the man who has it is Dhira, and noun of that is that Dhairyam. This is called Dhairyam. So Dhairyam has to be there. If Dhairyam is not there, the discrimination will not be there. Why discrimination is necessary, or why the Dhairya is necessary for listening to the Upanishads, Satsang? Why it is necessary, Dhairya, discrimination? He should know, or he will, after discrimination, he will analyze and establish himself, or he will have the Sthita Prajna, and in that what I am learning, listening, is meant for my execution of my karmas and kartavyas and the evolution. And this is what is required. established on that. He is a Dhira. So the quality of a person who would like to listen to the Upanishads satsang or Upanishads studies or Vedantic studies should be a Dhira. That's what I mean. Dhairyam should be there. Dhairyam. In other languages, Dhairyam has been put as courage. You can translate it in courage. If I translate, okay, even though that is not the right meaning in Sanskrit, Dhairyam here is mind, the discrimination of the mind, bringing the mind into balance system. But even if I discuss on that, what's that I said? Courage. Even if I say it is courage, let me say that in that language only I will say that one should have the courage to listen to Upanishads, Vedantic studies. For doing wrong things, we don't have to have courage. Do we know? Then just do it. To do right things, we should have courage. So again, the meaning comes towards that, even though we don't get the clarity of the meaning there, in courage. Courage means the physical strength or mental stability, strength and things like that. In fact, the true meaning as the idea is that the one who has controlled his mind, the one who has absolute identification of his self, that means where he achanchala, he is not disturbed with the attractions and attachments, he doesn't have any ashtanishta, he is absolutely firm. When he is firm and when he is right, he is absolutely calm. A Dhira will always be calm. Nothing will disturb him. That what disturbs is not Dhairyam. Because the discrimination power is not there. The ones who has got a discrimination power is a Dhira, and Dhira will be. Naturally, when there is no agitation of the mind, Dhira will be calm. That's why Maharshis and Tapasis and Jnanis, you will find them absolutely calm. Anything happens, calm. The story is there, Janaka's palace, when Maharshi Vasishta's putra Shuka, Maharshi Shuka went for training, or he was sent for training to him. So once it so happened that he has made arrangements with his people. So during the discussions of the Vedantic discussions, one man, what do you call him? Whoever it is, the doorman or somebody, he comes and tells Raja, there is a fire in your palace. He said, whatever job you are supposed to do, you go and do it. You all do your karma. He continued this session. Again, second time said that this fire is spreading. He continued, he said, you go and do your karma. And he continued this session. Third time he said that the fire has already reached here, almost here. So then Shuka got disturbed. Shuka said, I have kept this potli is there, he has got that cotton bag and the stick is still there. That was kept outside the door before entering the classroom, let me call it as classroom, where Raja is sitting there to teach the Vedanta. He said, let me go and take it. So he rushed to take it, and then he said, sit down. Look at this. You are unable to get the attraction or attachment towards a small cotton bag and the stick. How will you have detachment in your life? How will you have power of discrimination in your mind to be in the Sthita Prajna? Whatever happens. So this was just an example that to tell us that whatever happens, be there. So to be that. So that's Sthita Prajna or Ishta Anishta. When it is there, it will not be there. So when a person, in order to listen to that, when he has got the power of discrimination, he should be firmly having that capacity to discriminate and say that this is good for me. It is what I am not wasting my time. It is meant for my. Yes, I got. As far as a Sansarik Jivan is concerned, or a Grihastha-ashrami is concerned, yes, a Grihastha-ashrami will say, yes, I have got the other responsibilities, no doubt about it. After this, I will do that responsibilities. It's not that. But during this time, this is necessary for my evolution, because after all my sansaric karmas, I am supposed to go to Vanapastha at that point of time. This is the only thing which will be there for me. For that, I have to prepare myself. So that basis has to be prepared. This discrimination has to be firmly convinced by you. Then you see the satsang, or then you see the Upanishad, or the Vedas, or the Jnanam, that what you are deriving will be what? Absolutely perfect. No? Because there are no agitations. Because otherwise what happens? Thousands of thoughts come in between, and then the Jnanam, that what you are deriving, is all mixed with many other things. Whereas they say that for a person who is supposed to be listening to this, or a person to be listening in the sense, don't take it as a literal meaning of listening the Upanishad only, even though I have written eligibility to listen to, in the sense eligibility to lead your life. These are necessary, that's all. Listening is nothing but Shravana. That's all. Shravanam in the sense, the whole life we are doing Shravanam only. So let us not take a literal meaning of only listening to, eligibility to, listening in the sense eligibility to lead your life. These are necessary. In lead your life, in every activity, you should have the Sthita Prajna, you should have the power of discrimination. Then you will be in a position to be in that perfectly well and right. Then there can be no wrongs. How can there be wrong? Is it not easy? Very easy. Many people used to say, no, how to do the right karma and then not get attracted to the results of it. Bhagavad Gita said, attachment should not be there. So it's very difficult to consume. But this is very easy to consume. How you create the immense purity of the mind, where the discrimination is created, and through the discrimination, Sthita Prajna is created. In Sthita Prajna, you are able to see or feel or experience what is right for your karma, kartavya, and the evolution. These three things are evolution of the self towards the Parabrahman. Is that once it is there, everything is clear, everything is shantam, everything is fine. It will all be there. The other things are not matters. So what happens once this is practiced? Not only here, but in all activities, this will be used. Once the mind is tuned to that, not only here, it will all be here. Once a man's characteristics changes based on these things, that remains, and when it starts achieving results, and at last, it gives benefits, we start deriving benefits out of it, our mind will be more and more attracted towards that. This is necessary. That is, if it is not there, it is difficult, otherwise it is difficult. This is what is required. This is the perfection of it. I hope is it clear? The analysis is each and every small thing. So, keeping away ahankara, just with this quality, ata or iti, one should listen to the Guru. That's what I'm saying. Iti, one should listen to the Guru. The listener should be listening. By the time Guru thinks, when it comes to his mind, the disciple is able to understand it. And you will find it in Ramayana. Lavakusha was taught by Valmiki, Maharishi Valmiki. When Maharishi Valmiki starts explaining, Lava and Kush starts. Before he speaks, he gets it. In the sense, what does it mean? Not that before he speaks you should know it. In the sense, the exaggeration here is analyzed like this. Once you have the Sthita Prajna, again I go back. Once you have the Sthita Prajna based on the purity of the mind, based on the discrimination power, based on the Ishta Anishta Anubhava is removed, and then your capability of the power of discrimination is prominent, you become a dhira, and in the dhirata, the absolute clarity of the jnanam comes. Then what happens? When he sits with that purity of the mind, that power of discrimination, that absolute calmness, because of the dhairya in him, because of the balance of the mind, or balance of the mind, when he sits there, he will be listening through the mind, not through the ears. Then what happens? Scientific, now today's material scientifically speaking, that your vibrational frequency of the mind, which is pure, and the vibrational frequency of the Guru, which is pure, will be one. I told you that when all the sannyasis or maharishis are sitting and doing tapasya, there is all only right. For everyone, that right is right. Is it not? Why? Because the characteristics of the mind is in the absolute purity and absolute sthita prajna and absolute powered by discrimination. No? That is everyone's mind. When everyone's mind is like that, everyone's right is also the same one. There cannot be two different things. Is it not? Same way, if the disciple have this iti, I said, he have this, and one sitting there, what happens? The vibrational frequencies of that, both of them are in the same plane. So once you are in the same plane, the words are not the one which is making you understand. It is the frequency through which, that's why they said through the third eye, the Guru disperses the satsang, and the disciple perceives it, not listening it, not receiving it, perceiving it. Not only receiving and perceiving, of course. Without receiving, perceiving cannot be there. Perceiving it in the sense, he just absorbs it, and then, not that once it is done, it is absolutely there. Like today, the earlier days when Vedas were taught by the Maharishis to the disciples, as you all know, they have repeated number of times, it was not through the books and pen and writing and by hearting or reading or listening and seeing things like that. Just by listening to the Guru, they understood. And it is valid. One class they took, they say that you practice it, next class I will ask you the question. He repeats it absolutely. Whatever has been spoken, absolutely he says that. From where? Because his memory is not maligned by any other ishta and ishta of him. His swartha bhava or his individuality doesn't interfere inside that. He is that jnanam. He is that jnanam which was there at that point of time. So this synchronization takes place in that plane. In each plane, when we go at different vibrational frequencies, when we are one, we feel the same experiences there. When we go to a negative place, we experience the negativity. When we go to a positive place, we experience the positivity. Not just in small languages, I would say. Same way what happens, you should be experiencing the Veda and Upanishads, not listening. Listening means you will be keeping in memory. Memory meant for forgetting. If you are memorizing, it will also de-memorize. No? Don't memorize. Swallow this. In other words, make the mind swallow it, not the throat. In the sense, something like that. This is what he means by that. By the time Guru thinks, the disciples get it. Is the meaning of that. Even physically, it is not that, but it is it is there. It is physically there. Sorry, it is there. But one has to synchronize oneself. One has to have the connection. When that link has to be complete. Then what happens? Then nothing to worry. It keeps on coming, and same thing happens here also. What is happening in the Guru? Same thing happens to the disciple. No change in that. Absolutely same. Prashna Upanishad, when we have taken this particular subject, was there in a different way. We have explained it in the Prashna Upanishad. Also in Guru Gita may be there, I think. Listeners should be listening by the time the Guru thinks. Grahyate, that means grahya, grahya. He should be able to perceive it in its right meaning. See, there are so many perceptions. Everybody listens to talks. We are all talking. Everybody listens to the satsang. Each one interprets it according to his own emotional and educational level. Samatva Bhavana, Swamiji said, Samatva Bhavana. People have interpreted Samatva Bhavana in thousands of ways. In thousands of ways. Karl Marx has taken this Upanishads and put it in totally a different way. You will find the same words and meanings when you read. Many people say that, oh, it is true, Karl Marx has taken it from the Vedas and Upanishads, the whole thing has been taken. There he has written Samatva Bhavana. They bring it, what happened? The communism has, what happened? By bringing the Samatva Bhavana, they made everybody poor. Samatva. It can be interpreted like that. Let everybody be poor, there is no problem. Only 10 people should be rich. No, that's what has happened. So what happened? The interpretation of the Samatva Bhavana has been taken by them, by the people who have done this in a different way. They said that the equality. There is no Malik, there is no Naukar, there is no owner, there is no employee, there is no employer, there is no employee. Everything should be same. It cannot be. In certain senses it cannot be. In the physical sense, especially material sense, it may not. In the material science, it is not possible. In the Bhautik Jivan, it may not. It is not possible. We are seeing it is not possible. But the Samatva Bhavana meant in the Upanishad and Vedas are totally different. Absolutely different Samatva Bhavana. We have explained, I think, number of pages on Samatva Bhavana. I am not repeating the same thing, otherwise we will go away from here. Samatva Bhavana. Where the Samatvam has to be there, where the Samatvam has to be brought. They all have to be brought up to the evolution and to the Brahmajnanam. It is Samatvam, it is Samatva Bhavana, they said. Everything, not that the tree and the animal are same, Samatvam, it's not the same. The tree is tree and the animal is called the Samatva Bhavana. That which is there, it has to be accepted as it is and then derive it to the benefit of the evolution is called the Samatva. Donkey and horse cannot be same. It never can be same. It is different. They are different. So the difference is not the physical difference what we are talking about in the Samatva Bhavana. In Samatva Bhavana is that Brahma Sakshatkaram is Samatva Bhavana. Where, other things are there where I think we have done in Upanishad a lot of explanation of Samatva Bhavana. So, Grahyate, to perceive, different people perceive it in different ways. They are all listening to the same thing, depending upon their educational background, their emotional background, their personal difficulties and problems. The meaning that is told is totally different. But here, the Shastra says, or the Upanishad says, or the Veda says that when you have synchronized with when the Sthita Prajna is there, when your thoughts and the Guru's thoughts are becoming same, in the same vibrational frequency, that what is perceived will have the same meaning as or what he meant, what the Guru wanted to tell you. There are everything is in sutras, every word, in fact when you analyze it, each and every word is a sutra. From one word only we can multiply so many things. We are doing that. From one word only we are multiplying so many things. Every word is a sutra. Sutra means that sutra is that which is concised, which is capsuled or which is concentrated in one small unit. The whole, like a seed, a tree is hidden in the tree is seed, something like that. So the sutra is that, sutra. So everything is in sutras. So the interpretation of the sutra should be absolutely as the Guru wants it. Then only you will get the right meaning of it, then only he is showing you the path. Then only you will be able to walk on that path and achieve that result what he wants you to achieve. That's the purpose of teaching. So it has to be not by hearting the words, not just understanding the meaning. There are so many Sanskrit scholars who can interpret the Vedas or interpret the meanings of the Sanskrit word. That is not what is Jnanam. Jnanam is that the sutra inside that, that's the not the meaning of it, but the inherent purpose of that particular word, why it has been created, has to be understood. This Jnanam is the one which is known as the Brahma Jnanam, Brahma Tattva. Not the word by word meaning. Word by word meaning, it may take you to somewhere else. It may take you to the right, okay, but it may take you to somewhere else when you try to understand only word by word. So, what I mean to say that the perception or the receiving or the perception by the disciple should be same as what the Guru wants to tell or wants to explain. Not telling, but wants to tell. He wants to tell, but words doesn't have that much of capacity to explain that what he thinks. The power of discrimination is there, what is necessary. You understood? The moment the word comes from the Guru or the thought comes from the Guru, the disciple, if he has got power of discrimination, what did I say? He knows what is right in this to take me to the evolution of the Brahma Tattva, Brahma Jnana. He perceives it. You got how it is? What is called perception? About perception I have spoken earlier also. Much in detail, perception. This is another version of it. This is how one has to listen to that. Then only you will be in that position. What is the benefit? You have to be in that position. So by the time what he thinks to tell you, what he means by that, that has got a wider spectrum. Somebody showed you a glass of water has been taken from the ocean and showed you this is the water from the ocean. We are bringing Ganga Jal from Gangotri and then all the places. Then for the purpose of purity, when a person is dying, especially Hindu Shastra, we believe in that. When a person is dying or something like that, or when we want to do purification during puja and all that, we use that Ganga Jal and then say that we presume that it is purified. Is it not? The purity of the water. So what happens? I brought a dabba or a container of the Ganga Jal from there, and we are taking it as a representation of the Ganga Jal, and for the purpose of the purity we are using it, and for the purpose of this giving to the dead persons also making his mind and thoughts and the sharira pure by taking the Ganga Jal is the meaning of it. That purity, while dying he should have purity. Where is the purity? Purity in the mind, purity in the thought. They are thinking that he will get the purity by taking the water. It's a presumption. So what happens? So this is, now what happens? Now I cannot bring the whole Ganga from the Gangotri, or I cannot show him, or I cannot take him to Gangotri and make him drink from straight from there, and so I have to bring it, an inference, a similarity. We have brought it and bring it here. Same way the sutras are like that. The water in the lota or water in the container is Gangotri, or the jala from the Gangotri. It is not Gangotri, but it is the Gangotri. Now, when you expand this, then only you will realize that it is from Gangotri. Gangotri is from somewhere else, and it has come from so and so, like this. All this explanation come from the droplet of water from the container. It's a sutra, something like that. Just for example, I am telling, don't take literal meanings of it. Just for example, same way, in each and every word one speaks, the Guru speaks, has got a depth in that. We call it as a depth. That means there is an inherent meanings are there. Even though he tries to explain it to the maximum possible extent, but still there are that you will get only when there are two things should be there. One is that when your purity is there, purity of the mana, and the discrimination power is there, and then the synchronization with the mana of the Guru is there, and automatically when you perceive that without any effort that you have to do, no analysis effort by the mind, without any effort, this clarification and classification automatically comes in you, is called perception. You don't have to think and sit and think what he said is right or wrong. If it is like this, it is right. If it is this one, right. Nothing has to be done. Why? Because this already has been absolutely immense purity has come. This immense purity will take you to this light. This is how one should listen to the Guru process. Grahyade, perceive the meaning as what does the Guru wants to tell. That's what I have to tell. What he wants to tell, you should know. What he is telling, you already know. What he is telling, you already know. What he wants to tell by his telling should be known. You got the difference between these two. This is what is the great. This is why it is known as secrecy. This is why it is known as the Rahasya of Vedanta. Rahasya of Vedas. Because it's an inherent. This has to be known. That what he wants to tell should be known. This is the Rahasya that you only know. You know and the Guru knows. This is why it is known as Rahasya. Secret. They say no. Upanishads are Rahasyas. Many people will ask, what is Rahasya in it? This is Rahasya in it. You have heard him. What he wanted to tell you. Then you will tell what you wanted to tell, not what he wanted to tell. Because it is you who is listening. It is your ahankara who is listening, who is mingled with Ishta, and Ishta is the one who is speaking, not the Guru speaking. But after listening, after when you speak, who should speak? The Guru should speak. Repetition of an example, but I have nothing else now to do. My knowledge is limited to that. So let me tell you the same example once again. What? Adi Shankaracharya's disciple Giri was there. Out of the four disciples, the Giri was the one who is the most weaker person to understand anything. But he was the one who does all the seva to the Guru, services to the Guru. His mind is absolutely pure. He doesn't have any selfish motive, or he doesn't have any competition with other disciples. Others are all scholars, they know many things. All others are very scholars. Giri did not know anything. He didn't want to be a competitor among them. They all make fun of him. He is like a pillar. He is like a wall and all that. Nothing, no matter. He just keeps his seva to the Guru and he is happy. This is good enough for me. And his mind is absolutely pure. The one who has had the power of discrimination. He is a dhairya. He says, by doing the seva, I will get what I require. You study, that's what is necessary for you. I do this and I will get it. That was his spiritual. And his mind was absolutely pure and absolutely synchronized with the Guru's mind. So one day, the same example I have told you earlier, but having told, now let me finish it. One day the Guru was wanting to take the class, and Adi Shankaracharya, great incarnation of the Lord himself, he sat there and the disciples were sitting, others, and he was not taking the class, he was sitting quiet. What happened? So one disciple asked Guruji, why don't we start our satsang session? He said, let Giri come, then I will leave. And quietly, then he said, then this man was telling the other man, he doesn't, but loudly to the Guru to hear. He hears anyway, even if you softly speak also, he will hear. Adi Shankaracharya will hear. He was telling the other one, Giri, why Guruji is after Giri? The Giri is as good as that pillar. The pillar is already there, it is already listening. So Giri, whether Giri is there, pillar is there, both are same. Still, Acharya did not start. After some time, Giri comes. He gets information. I think Guru is calling me. So from the washing clothes, he rush and come here. As soon as he comes in, he looks at him, tells him, "Come on, chant." Trodagashta or Trodagashta, both are same. Trodaga means Trodaga Raga. There is a Raga of Trodaga. In poetry, there is a singing Trodaga. And so it is either Trodagashtakam or it is Todagashtakam. He was known as Todagacharya afterwards. So what happened? He achieved that discrimination of power and the purity of mind and the immense purity of the mind, and also the Ishta Anishta and his personal individuality did not interfere in his mind, and absolutely synchronized with the Guru in the same frequency, whatever I am telling, synchronized with the Guru and then in the same frequency, and then he could understand or he could perceive what the Guru was thinking. The Guru was thinking, the Trodagashtakam, and he chanted that without any analysis, without any learning and all that. So the others were astonished. This is called the right example for the synchronization from the Guru and the perceiving the right. Because of this, I think this is the right example for it. We should remember this. Next, we'll continue in the next class. Om Shanti. It's beautiful, it is.